So when you do that against a good football team, you're going to have this. And so we have to coach them better. We got to play better. And we got to get these young guys going.
Offense, defense, special teams, everything can use some improvement after a 6-touchdown loss to Central Florida.
3 straight losses by an average of 37 points. We break it down on a brand new edition of Inside the Nest, which is live, and it starts right now.
Welcome to a brand new edition of Inside the Nest. He's Ray Dunn, and I'm Jackson Neal. After a terrifying result on Halloween weekend for Temple, it's now November, but the frightening scores may not be over.
Where is this program headed? We'll try to answer the question with regards to this week and beyond. First, however, it's another blowout loss. After an embarrassing road loss for the Owls versus South Florida, the Owls returned home to host Central Florida on Saturday. Losers of 4 straight to the Golden Knights, Temple was looking to turn the narrative on its season. It did quite the opposite in front of its smallest, full-capacity home crowd since 2014. There you can see it, a largely empty Lincoln Financial Field, less than 20,000 on hand officially. The Owls moved the ball in their first possession and worked their way to UCF's 29. On 4th and 2, the offense stays on the field. Juwan Mathis takes the snap and gets pummeled by Justin Hodges. After UCF and Temple trade punts, the Golden Knights have a golden opportunity. Isaiah Bowser gets the carry and coasts in from 11 yards out to make it 7-0 UCF. Temple's now been outscored 67-7 in the first quarter of games this season. Next night's possession, they are threatening once again. 2 Owls jump at Mikey Keene on the option play, but no one's in the flat. That'll lead to some hollering as well as a 13-yard catch for Alec Holler. 14-0, Owls looking to respond. Mathis gets it to Jordan Smith to get Temple in the red zone, but oh no, the ball is out. UCF recovers and takes over deep in their own territory. File this next one under Murphy's Law. The Owls appear to get the ball back on interception by Jalen Ware. But left to ask, where is the ball? A fumble right back to UCF results in 18-yard gain for the Golden Knights, and they are back in striking distance. 3 plays later, Keene takes the snap, and he's going to split the defense here, finding Brandon Johnson for an 18-yard score. Keene came into the game with 5 passing touchdowns on this season and doubled his total with 5 on Saturday. 21-0 at half, and following another UCF score, Temple gets the ball back trailing by 28. The drive lasts 1 play as running back Edward Sadie coughs it up. UCF takes over from the 12-yard line and doesn't waste time punching it in. Keene to Ryan O'Keefe, and the blowout is on. 35-0 now. We move to late in the fourth quarter, 49-0. Temple is fighting for a bright spot. Backup quarterback Justin Lynch finds Jose Barbone for a 27-yard score to make it 49-7. That's your final as the Owls lose their 3rd straight.
We're just gonna move on. I know my mindset as a corner is to move on. We're just gonna move on onto ECU. We can't really dwell on the past from this game. So our mindset is just to move on.
Yeah, but I don't have that luxury to check every single. It's only certain plays where we got checks and certain plays we don't. But honestly, I do see it though. I see a dude coming. If I'm being honest, I can run the ball just as well as Justin. So, I mean, I really don't know honestly. Whether he's doing that to take hits off of me, I don't know. I haven't talked to Coach Carey about it yet, but. I could talk to him and see what he says.
It was a career day for Knights QB Mikey Keene. The freshman threw for a career-best 5 touchdowns and 229 yards with a 71% completion percentage. That, combined with Central Florida's nearly 200 yards on the ground, allowed UCF to outgain the Owls by over 100 total yards. Turnovers were also a big difference maker. Temple couldn't hold on to the ball and lost 3 fumbles. After looking at those stats, it's certainly hard to find any silver linings for Temple.
There really isn't a silver line in this game. Again, I mentioned in the highlights, the bright spot, Jose Barbone, 27-yard touchdown after most of the sparse crowd had already left, a 49-7 loss. This defense allowed another 199 yards on the ground, which is a victory, honestly, compared to the past two games. Mikey Keene dicing up this secondary for 5 touchdown passes, matching his season total. There was just nothing there. I understand it's a young, inexperienced secondary playing right now, but it's just a brutal look for this defense again this weekend.
It really was a brutal look for the defense. You mentioned those stats right there. It just all comes from them playing, it seems almost uninspired. And one thing we're going to look at a little bit later in the show is the plus-minus by quarter. Well, heads up, their worst quarters for Temple, the first and the fourth. That tells me that they're not coming into the games prepared. They're not getting up for these games, and then they don't have the ability to close the games out. The first and fourth quarter are arguably the most important quarters in a football game. Get off to a good start and close it out, and right now, Temple isn't doing either.
I want to talk about plus minus. Since they were 1-1 in 2020 and had a lead at Memphis, 15-10 at halftime, they've been outscored by 251 points over that stretch. That's over almost a full season, pushing on a season and a half. It's not acceptable at this point. We've had our chance to break this down. Let's turn it over to the man who was on the scene for Inside the Nest on Saturday.
We go to Inside the Nest reporter Eric Jessberger, who is live outside Edberg Olsen Hall for an in-depth look at Temple's struggles early in games. Hi, Eric.
Thanks, Jackson and Ray. For the second straight week, the Owls found themselves on the wrong end of the scoreboard versus a Florida Conference foe. One of the big problems for Temple is the fact that they cannot score early. In fact, since week 5 of last season, the Owls haven't been able to score on their opening offensive drive. Saturday, the mistakes on offense early on piled up into the outcome Temple could not afford. Temple's opening drives this season have ended in 5 punts, 1 interception, and 1 safety.
Mathis tucks it down. Does he get out of the end zone? No. It's a safety.
Against UCF Saturday, the trend continued with the Owls going of a poor offensive start with 2 punts and a turnover on downs in their 3 first quarter possessions.
We were moving the ball on this first drive like we did, at other times, like the Memphis game, and then just ended up with a critical penalty that moved us back, knocked us back, put us in a situation where we couldn't stay on the field with the first drive because we were trying to make that up. So it's those critical errors that we've got to coach and get better at.
Temple has been outscored by 60 in the first quarter of their 8 games this season, demonstrating a greater issue facing the Owls offense.
We execute, we'll never be in those situations. When you go out there, if you don't execute each and every play, then how do you expect to stay on the field? You get 3 plays, you get 3 guaranteed plays, and if you don't execute in those first 3 plays, you got to get off the field. And as you look back, you go through it every week. And stuff like that happens. Once again, like I said, you can't expect good results.
There were glimpses of positives on both sides of the ball for Temple. However, just when they had chances to sway the game back over into their favor, the Owls came crashing back down along with their opportunities.
Felt like it was right there to be had when we had the ball in the red zone, just gained a first down. And then we fumbled when it was 14-0, and then had a pick and then fumbled it. Penalties and turnovers certainly put the score what it was.
It's a change of possession, fumble, and the Knights get it back.
The top 3 teams in the AAC have won 15 of their 20 games when scoring first. A formidable group of offenses which the Owls seek to be a part of once their struggles on the first offensive drive turn into crooked numbers on the scoreboard. Cleaning up the penalties and drops might lead to more offensive success, as the Owls still have something to play for, bowl eligibility. However, if these early problems and mistakes continue to happen on the struggling offense, it's hard to imagine the Owls winning 3 of their next 4. Reporting from Edberg Olsen Hall, I'm Eric Jessberger, Inside the Nest. Jackson and Ray, back to you in Studio 3.
Thanks, Eric. It's time for us to take our first break. When we come back, it's time to hear from Rod Carey.
The head coach discussed the loss and a recent report about a lack of communication between the coaching staff and starting QB DeJuan Mathis. Carey's thoughts after this break.
Welcome back to Inside the Nest. Following Temple's blowout loss to UCF, there were plenty of questions left to be answered.
In his weekly press conference, Ron Carey touched on the mistakes, why he's canceling Tuesday's practice, and an update on some injuries.
We got through the film yesterday and met with our guys, and it's more of what we thought, self-inflicted wounds against a good team. Really an 8-minute stretch there of when we fumbled the ball down on the 13 to an interception, to a fumble right away, to the opening drive of the second half, to our then first play offensively fumbling. That 8-minute game stretch right there really cost us the balance of the game right there. But we did fight, and we did get a goal line stand there and keep fighting the entire time. Disappointed with it, moved on to ECU. And, in the middle of this week is going to be a little different, obviously. Rich already mentioned it. We have election day tomorrow, so we will have no athletic-related activities tomorrow. So today we did bring them in and lift. Obviously, game plan's not complete to go out and practice and to do anything like that today. So not a bad thing at this point in the season with 4 games left. Certainly bumped and bruised, so an extra day off is not a bad thing in the grand scheme of things, although it does cause coaches a little anxiety. Won't get as many practice reps as we normally like going into a game, but we will certainly get all the work and be prepared. With that, we can open up for questions.
I guess you said you didn't practice, but is Will Rogers lifting? Is Will Rogers with the team this week?
Yeah. I'm not going to answer that right now because I haven't made a decision on that.
Okay. On injury front, just wanted to ask about one guy. I think I saw Deshaun Winston was out of the boot on Saturday. Does that mean he's close to practicing, playing?
That means he's out of the boot, is what that means. He's getting better. This is just something that has to be time. They're treating, they're trying to stimulate, they're trying to do everything they can for the area, but it's a time thing. So he is certainly making progress.
It was Arthur Johnson's first day. Just curious what your sort of interaction with him has been over the last month.
Yeah, obviously I was at his press conference and excited to have him. Excited, and I know he's excited to get going too, and get around and learn everybody and the whole thing. Certainly have had text messages, phone calls, and been able to see him periodically in time leading up to this. And then we did have our first all-staff meeting today, so it was very good to get everybody together for really one of the first times since before COVID. So it was a good way to bring everybody together.
You guys have only scored 7 points in the first quarter of the season. What issues have you seen early in games, and how can you fix them moving forward?
We're constantly trying to fix that issue between penalties and different things that set us back in opening drives and situations that we're overcoming at times, but not to a point where we've gotten in the end zone yet. This consistently enough in the first quarter in this season, and that's something that we are continuing to emphasize, do situationally, and we're going to keep at it.
Carey touches on a lot there, including those turnovers. Those were tough early on.
Yeah, he touches on it at the beginning and end of that, really talking about the mistakes, the consistent mistakes that this team continues to make. And those mistakes have been prevalent early in games. The reason why these scores are getting so lopsided as these games continue on is because of the mistakes early on. They're not able to respond. They're not able to score early on, and they're already way behind, working from behind, and having to get outside of their game plan so early on in these games, which is just not winning football.
No, it really isn't. And then even in the games they do win, or even the games they should be winning, they're still getting down early. Right now, down 14-0 to Akron. Then they went down 7-0 to Wagner, down 14-0 to USF. These are games where they either won or the games they should have won here in conference and out of conference, and yet they're still getting down early. They haven't really made that many real adjustments that have led to more success in the first quarter. As of right now, I don't see where they can go from here in terms of the first quarter struggles.
I can't see where they're going to go with this as well. And just looking at everything else coming out of that presser, good for Election Day, getting that day off. That's nice to see them doing. The question mark out of that presser for me, outside of what's happening on the field, is with Will Rogers. Obviously not something mentioned, but a defensive lineman transferred in from Washington State. They expect him to be a difference maker. Hasn't had a big season really this year at all, and now not with the program. Obviously, don't know what's going on there, but that will test the depth on that defensive line. And
the depth is on the defense is something we've touched on multiple times throughout this season. We touched on it earlier in the show. This defense has struggled recently, so losing just even one person is really going to test this defense's strength. We've even heard Kerry talk about it as early as week 4, week 5, with the multiple injuries they've had as well. It's been a tough year for the depth on that defense.
Absolutely. Now, next up, more from Kerry as he critiques ECU's quarterback, talks about his relationship with DeJuan Mathis, and tries to end any talk about a Temple quarterback competition.
About ECU, or even more broadly, I think, in this league, there's like 4 freshman quarterbacks, and there's 4 or 5 like 4th year, 5th year seniors. You've prepared for 3 freshmen so far, and then you prepared for Ritter, and now it's another experienced guy this week. Is that either both preparation-wise or when you get into the game, how is that sort of different to coach against when the other team is, freshman versus 5th year guy?
Well, you look at the tape is what you do, and you base off whether they're freshman or senior, what they're performing, the level they're performing at, and what you need to take away and what you need to try to do to them, given a scheme. And some experience certainly weighs into that, but that's really where you start on those things. Obviously, you deal with a more inexperienced guy. There are some different things that you can do when you're dealing with an experienced guy. He's kind of seen it all. So you try to do some things as well there, but that's what you do. You get to the film is what you do, Sean.
Okay. Last thing I would ask was, regarding sort of your freshman quarterback, and you've also got a rookie quarterback coach, right? I'm wondering that, right? And those are the guys, right? It's DeJuan or Justin and Jake Landry. They're the guys who are sort of, they're interacting with them in the game or whatever it might be. Is your sort of management of the position a little bit closer because it's all new guys, whether it's the coaches, the players this year?
DeJuan and I have a relationship that we established from the time that we started recruiting him to him being here. So we've worked very hard at our relationship and building that trust, and trust is time, right? On that. Certainly have a lot of confidence in Jake, having played for us, quarterback back at North Dakota. And then, as a GA, he's been with me a long time, and then was gone at lacrosse and was an offense coordinator, quarterbacks coach. So have a lot of trust in him, and their relationship is very good. So yeah, us 3, along with Mike Uremovich, certainly, we're all communicating constantly during the game, outside of the game, during the week. And we're all taking those steps together. But as far as am I doing it more? I guess more compared to what? I mean, I think everyone's different. Every situation's different.
On Saturday, you liked the idea of implementing Justin Lynch into, 5-10 plays in a game. And I know you made it very clear that there's no quarterback competition. I was just curious kind of when that plan or when that idea came about and kind of like what your thoughts are looking forward with that.
Yeah, so DeJuan is our quarterback, and certainly Justin has played and will play at some to take some hits off of DeJuan, and that's the plan.
Hey, Rod, you talked a little bit about DeJuan already. I wanted to follow up on something. When we were talking to him after the game Saturday, he said he doesn't always have the luxury of checking out plays, which I realize is completely and totally normal. And then I followed up with him and said, what's your relationship like with Rod and Mike when it comes to talking to them about what you're seeing. And he said, I sometimes, but I don't really have that luxury. And I just wanted to ask you to comment on that, because we talked to him after we talked to you, and I wanted to get your viewpoint on that so you could provide some context.
Yeah, listen, this isn't something that I'm going to play out like, okay, I want his comment on this question with this comment from him after you gain certain information from certain people. We talk all the time.
Mhm.
I talk to Dewan every day. Mike talks to him every day. Jake does. Dewan talks to us every day. We are in communication. So, as far as what you guys are, I don't know, asking as far as, well, can he check out? Can he check out? Listen, every offense has situations where you cannot check out and where you can. And we talk and we get his input and he gets our input all the time. So I don't know how I can put that any clearer to this line of questioning. Then I don't know where it came up from or what happened, but that's what we do all the time. So is everyone understand that? I mean, there shouldn't be any gray area in that, right?
Hey, Ron, I know the Justin Lynch 10 to 15 carries thing is relatively new. Have you talked about
guys, this thing too that's going, and I don't know where you guys are going or what this is. Dewan Mathis is our quarterback. We're using Justin to take some hits off Dewan. We've used him at times the entire season. That's the purpose of it. That's what it is. And so I don't know anything more to say about that.
Can I ask you how Dewan feels about it? If you've talked to him about that yet?
Yeah, I have. We've talked with them. They're together on it. We're together on it.
It wouldn't be a Temple football season on Inside the Nest without a quarterback controversy.
No, it really wouldn't. We're hearing these controversial quotes coming from a little bit of both sides. And after hearing what Kerry has to say and also what Mathis said in his post-game press conference, it just feels like there's some miscommunication. There's not a direct line of communication right now, which is really tough when it's your starting quarterback and your head coach. Mathis in his post-game press conference mentioned how he thinks he runs better than Lynch, but yet Lynch is still getting these carries throughout these games. He doesn't really understand why that's happening. There needs to be a more direct line of communication between the head coach and starting QB. It's the most important position on the field.
I think it was a really tough spot for Dewan to be in. It seemed like he found out about Justin Lynch getting that role in the offense right there in the postgame, emotional after the game, just going through everything. So I think that was a tough spot for him to be put in. But Ryan Kerry has to expect these questions. When you mention using another quarterback to supplement your quarterback, we went through this. We watched this happen on this campus just 2 years ago with Todd Centeio and Anthony Russo. The line of questioning was continually there. That's just what happens when you use multiple quarterbacks. The old cliche, you have two quarterbacks, you have none. He's going to continue to face these questions if this continues to be the situation on the field for the Owls.
And don't forget, Justin Lynch is a freshman. Earlier in the season, around week 2, week 3, Rod Carey mentioned how he was thinking about possibly retaining that year of eligibility so he could still redshirt Lynch. The rule is if you play in 4 football games, you cannot redshirt if you've played more than 4 football games. And Dewan Mathis came back for that Wagner game. That was the 4th game of the season, and yet Lynch continued to play. That shows me that they really wanted to keep incorporating Lynch, and that's going to bring up QB controversy whether you like it or not.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just a tough position for anyone to be in right now. They're trying to find solutions. They're trying to get something going with this offense, but it's not working right now, and this is going to now be a storyline for them to deal with the rest of the way.
It certainly will be. Well, it's now time to look forward to Temple's next game against East Carolina. It's coming this Saturday.
We'll break down the matchup and give you the key for Temple to get back to its winning ways. Inside the Nest, we'll be right back. Welcome back to Inside the Nest. A trip to Greenville is in store for the Owls as they look to put the horrors of October behind them.
But this isn't a normal East Carolina team. ECU enters this matchup in the middle of one of its best seasons in quite some time.
For the Pirates, there are signs that the tide is starting to turn. 2020 marked the 6th straight season below 500 for ECU, but there is reason for optimism for the program this season. It appears justified. They played close with South Carolina early in the season, beat a talented Marshall team, and have mopped up their lackluster AAC competition thus far. Their play has been especially solid at home, where they are 3-1 this season. The defense has been the driving force in their success with 18 turnovers on the season, good for second best in the AAC.
Forcing turnovers will certainly help ECU continue to turn the tide in this rivalry. These two teams are almost dead even in their 17 matchups, with Temple having the slight edge with 9 wins. A lot of that success came recently. The Owls won 6 straight from 2014 to 2019, but last year's 28-3 win by the Pirates broke that winning streak, which was the longest in series history. Before that, East Carolina's last win against the Owls was back in 1995 when they won 32-22. The difference in that game for you history buffs? Turnovers. The Pirates picked off Temple QB Henry Burris 3 times, including once on the goal line late in the fourth quarter.
To avoid losing to ECU again this season, it's going to take the Owls protecting the football. The Pirates are especially good at snagging passes out of the air. Their 12 interceptions are the second best in the conference and tied for 6th best in the entire country. Cornerback Jaquan McMillian has picked off 4 passes, taking one of them back for a touchdown this season. DeJuan Mathis has thrown 3 interceptions in this 3-game losing streak and has had some tough misses. He'll need to be extra careful against this secondary.
For East Carolina, they're going to want to continue to force those turnovers, and their plan to do so is simple. Put pressure on the quarterback. The Pirates are second in the American with 19 sacks, and they get everyone involved. 5 different players have multiple QB takedowns on the year, and this variety in the pass rush makes it difficult to protect against for any team. But Temple has had line issues all year. The Owls rank 88th in the nation in protecting the QB as they've allowed 20 sacks. If the Pirates apply some pressure, DeJuan Mathis could be either taken down or forced to make some bad decisions.
Another week, another game on ESPN+. This is the 6th time that the Owls have played on the streaming platform, the most in the conference. For those who aren't morning people, congrats. You'll be able to sleep in. It's a 3 o'clock kickoff.
Temple might want to wake up a little earlier than usual, though. The first 15 minutes are the worst time for the Owls, as they've been outscored by 60 points in the first quarter alone, and it doesn't get much better later in the game. They have a negative plus-minus for every quarter, with the first and fourth being the worst. When you're unable to start or finish games strong, their 3-game losing streaks are inevitable.
As for the Pirates, they also aren't necessarily the best at starting games, or halves for that matter. They've been outscored by 26 points in the first and third quarters combined. It hasn't mattered that much, however, because they've been big when it counts most. ECU is outscoring opponents by 40 points in the fourth quarter of games.
That positive plus-minus at the end of games has allowed East Carolina to have a strong start to conference play. The Pirates currently sit in the top 5 of the conference with a 2-2 record. But keep in mind, those 2 losses were against some of the best teams. One was a 4-point defeat to Central Florida, and another was a 7-point loss in overtime to a currently nationally ranked Houston squad.
By all accounts, this is a favorable stretch coming up for ECU. Temple, Memphis, and Navy are combined 11-15 and have not played particularly well in conference. Winning 2 of those games will put the Pirates in a bowl game for the first time since 2014. They'll get a true litmus test of the program in the season's final game against Cincy. Since the advent of the AAC, Temple has only lost to ECU once, and that was last season. Can the Owls get back to their winning ways on Saturday? We'll have the answer on the other side of the break.
That's right, everyone's segment is coming up next, and we'll have a special guest as well. Inside the Nest will be back in just 90 seconds. Welcome back to Inside the Nest. It's time for some predictions. Among tackling other hot topics, we have a special guest today, Josh Safran.
You see him on Thursdays on Owl Sports Update. Today, he's pulling overtime for Inside the Nest. Let's welcome him in.
Thanks, guys. I am ready to roll through this no huddle, fellas.
Yes, we like to call it no huddle. With 4 games left, what game is Temple most likely to win to close out the season?
Well, fellas, I want to pick one of these games so badly, but to be honest, my answer is none of these games. let's look at ECU this Saturday. Listen, we'll get into it in a second, but I'm not feeling good about Saturday for multiple reasons. Then after that, you got Houston, right? And actually, I think from a matchup standpoint, this is the most in Temple's favor. Houston likes the pass, and Temple's had a success defending the pass. But I think Clayton Tune takes the Owls to Toontown in that matchup. Houston just too talented overall. They're ranked 20th, as you guys just mentioned. Then looking at Tulsa and Navy, seems like the Owls should be able to get a win, but this Tulsa team hung in with Oklahoma State. They didn't get blown out by Ohio State. They've shown prowess both on the passing game and in the run game. And finally, Navy. Oh, fellas, I'm dreading this game. That triple option has always given Temple fits, and this year with Temple's run defense, I don't see them stopping them.
Josh, I'm going to have to agree with you on that one. I don't see a win coming anywhere on this remaining schedule, especially after these past couple of games. Getting blown out by USF, getting blown out again then by UCF. This Temple team is playing uninspired football right now. You ran through that schedule. There's some tough games with teams like Houston, but even the Tulsa and Navy games, both of them have great head coaches that are certainly going to have their teams playing hard later in the season. I'm just not sure if Temple's going to be playing as hard as them.
I'll at least give viewers an idea of a game. Let's go with Tulsa, because Tulsa has been really bad at converting in the red zone. They don't take great care of the football. They've been undisciplined, commit a lot of penalties. So there's a chance they could beat themselves in that game. But like you two laid out, it does not look great these last 4 games for the Owls. And I am dreading that Navy game. I know both you said that triple option scares me.
Yeah, it certainly will be. Now, looking at this final month, who is one player that could have a big impact for Temple in these final 4 games?
You know, I hate to cop out here and pick the most important position, but I think it's DeJuan Mathis. You know, Temple's real only good win this season came against Memphis, and that was a result of DeJuan Mathis just putting the team on his back. We just saw Rod Carey talking about the quarterback controversy here. I think you're going to get DeJuan Mathis playing angry, and listen, I'm not saying it's going to happen against Houston, but who knows? DeJuan Mathis is that guy for Temple moving forward, and I think he's going to prove it in one of these last 4 games. Yes, I did just say no wins, but hey, DeJuan Mathis could be the guy to get them over the hump. He's one of these games, right? I like it. Maybe Tulsa, why not?
I'll go with a deep cut here. I'm going Mahim McCargo.
Ooh.
Right now listed as the backup at the Bubo position. Finally makes the 2-man depth chart this week. And he's been a bright spot over the last 2 weeks for this team. They love the young linebackers core. I feel like I've talked about 1,000,000 times on this show at this point. McCargo, also a local kid. You know, I love a good local player for Temple football. McCargo's had 12 tackles, 3 of them for loss, and has recovered a fumble in the last 2 weeks. He's earning that playing time, and I truly think at his position and with what we've seen for the defense over these last couple of weeks, he will be a difference maker and get plenty of opportunities to prove himself with this team.
I'm going to go back over to the offense with some answers similar to Josh's. I'm going to say wide receiver Jose Barbone. Right now, he leads the team with 370 receiving yards, also has 2 touchdowns, so he's had a pretty good season so far. But remember what we talked about earlier, getting down in the first quarter, how bad Temple's been outscored by 60 points. Going forward, they're going to be down in a lot of these football games, especially if we don't see many wins coming, so they're going to be throwing the football. I think Jose Barbone is going to step up, get some big catches, at least put up some good stats. Maybe even if these are losses, I could see him having a big end of this season.
That's what you're hoping for out of that wide receiver core, Jose Barbone. They've been expecting him to take the next step, the 27-yard touchdown catch at the end of this weekend's game. Definitely something they're looking for going forward. Now, our final question, what's your prediction for Temple's matchup against ECU this weekend?
Man, you guys aren't going to have me back on with this bad news. I'm predicting a loss, 37-22 to be exact. Everything points to ECU in this game. I think the biggest thing here, Keaton Mitchell, the freshman running back for ECU, when he plays at home, averages 8.1 yards per carry. We've seen how Temple defends the run. A couple more stats here. ECU, 1 loss at home. That was to a SEC school. Temple only has 1 win on the road against Akron. And finally, ECU, they average 1.7 takeaways per game, and Temple's at the bottom of the country in terms of turnovers. Fellas, I just don't see it happening this weekend.
Josh, I'm going to have to agree with you. I'm going to go with a little more lopsided score. I'm going to say 35-14. I think this ECU team is going to come out early. They want to have one of their best records in 7 years, try to get back to that first bowl game since 2014. And to do that, they're playing, this Temple team has not been playing well. They're going to know that coming into this game, this home game. They're going to come out, get up early in the first quarter, continue to run the football, and just control the clock for the rest of this football game. I don't see this one being close for Temple.
You know it's bad when you've lost me as the shimmering light of positivity when it comes to these game predictions. I am going to agree with both of you. I have a score similar to Jackson's in 34 14. I just don't see them winning this game. You mentioned the Pirates have a ton to play for. They're looking to get to that first bowl game in nearly 7 years. And for the Owls, when they go on the road, it has not been pretty in the Rod Carey era. They are 3-10 in his career here at Temple on the road. They've been outscored by 191 points in those games. It's not pretty. I don't think they're going to be able to change that narrative this week. And that is all the time we have for No Huddle. Thank you so much for joining us, Josh.
Thanks, fellas. The pleasure was all mine.
No Huddle may be over, but there is still more to come. It was a busy weekend in the AAC, including a win that catapulted one team past Cincinnati in the rankings. We recap it all when Inside the Nest returns in 90 seconds. Welcome back to Inside the Nest. 10 of 11 AAC schools were in action this weekend, and as expected, the standings are looking a little bit different.
For more on what's happening amongst the teams in the American, we send it over to Inside the Nest reporter Emily Cochran, who is live over at the studio set. Hi, Emily.
Thanks, guys. The AAC has made it to double digits. It's week 10, and you know the drill. But first, this past weekend, there were not many surprises in week 9. Last week, Ray said he wanted to see how many points the Bearcats could score against Tulane, a team that sits at the very bottom of the American. But Cincinnati pulled ahead by only 19 points. Were we expecting more from them? Maybe. But a win's a win, and that's really all that matters for the Bearcats, who are still ranked second in the nation. The biggest game was the Houston-SMU tilt, and the Cougars won in a close 44-37. With that win, there are only 2 undefeated teams in the conference right now, the Bearcats and the Cougars. This means if the season were to end today, we would have our conference title matchup. Houston and Cincy do not play each other in the regular season, so both could end the year undefeated heading into the game. After the top 2, there are a bunch of teams with 1 or 2 losses, including UCF moving up a notch to join the top 4. Temple, however, did the complete opposite and moved down a spot, which now puts them in the bottom 3. Okay, I know it's a little early, but mark your calendars because college football's 2021 bowl season starts on December 17th, and the American Athletic Conference title is December 4th. Cincy is projected to compete in both the conference title game and the college football playoff. The Bearcats have been handling other AAC teams like a playoff team should, and it's important they keep doing that if they want to secure that spot. As for the rest of the American, SMU and Houston are both nationally ranked and will likely play in a big-time bowl game. As for the Owls, I don't think they have much of a chance based on their performances thus far. Temple needs to win at least 3 to be eligible, 3 of their 4. Ray and Jackson, back to you guys on the desk.
Thank you, Emily. If those predictions hold true, which bowl game are you traveling to, Ray?
I am going to travel to Boca Raton Bowl game regardless. That is the game I want to be at no matter what, no matter who's playing. Obviously, being down there in Florida, I'll be interested to see if ECU is able to make a bowl game because I really think that fan base has been starved, and I want to see them get a chance to play in a bowl game.
Certainly, and also you mentioned Cincinnati in the college football playoff. First rankings come out Tuesday night, so we'll see where they are in that. It's now time for our weekly Twitter poll. The Owls dropped their 3rd straight game over the weekend, and while the outcome may have been scary to our audience, at least it wasn't too unexpected. Going into the game, 60% of our viewers said that Central Florida would win, and they were resoundingly correct. This week, we continue to ask for your game predictions. Will Temple get their first win in over a month, or will East Carolina beat the Owls in back-to-back years for the first time since the 90s? Let us know by voting on our Twitter @OwlSportsUpdate.
Coming up on Thursday, Lindsey Moppert and Luke Mealy are back on the desk for a new edition of Owl Sports Update. They'll preview the beginning of basketball season for the men and the women. They'll have that and more live at noon on TUTV.
And last month, Arthur Johnson was introduced as Temple's new athletic director and vice president. We're going to have him on the show next week, live for a chance to speak with him and get a little bit of a future on Temple's sports programs, including their football program.
That's absolutely right, Jackson. We'll look forward to that. But that's all the time we have this week.
For Ray Dunn and the entire Inside the Nest crew, I'm Jackson Neal. See you next Tuesday.